Hi y'all. What y'all doing? Alright. I don't know if you can tell or not, but it rained pretty dang good. So I figured, this would be a really good time to talk about tinder. Why do I say a really good time? I tell you. Because with everything wet, finding dry tinder to light your fires with is extremely difficult. So this is going to be a couple-parter series on fire. But first I'm going to talk about tinders. What kinds of tinders there are, what you can use them for, etc. Because I find the different tinders work better for different kinds of fire lighting methods. That's just my own personal observation. Like a cedar bark, I have you sitting on a cedar tree right now. The inner bark, when it's dry, and keep in mind this is when it has not rained, you can just scrape it off and yada yada. Now, big tip, if, and I say if, it's early in the day, and you're going to be walking around a lot, and it's going to be a while before you try and start a fire, here's what you should do. Take some of that fluffy stuff off of the cedar trees, and just put it in your pocket. Put it in your pocket. Because your body heat will dry it out. And once that's dry, obviously it's going to be pretty easy to do what you're going to do with it. Right? Right. So, I'm going to be showing you a few different ways you can look for dry tinder after a really good rain. This was a really, really good rain. You want to look on the undersides of things, inside of natural cavities, etc., etc. Because after it rains, you want to take what you can get, the best you can get, whether it's a dry pine needle to a tiny little micro fluff of cedar bark to, and just combine it all into one little trim fluffy thing. That's what you gotta do. That really does help too. So I'm gonna go ahead and take y'all up here to the rest of the woods, and let's see if we can find some genuinely dry tinder. Alright? See y'all on the way. Bye-bye. Hello. So I haven't gone far, and I've already found a pretty good little tree for us. So, alright, you see how this tree is bent over like that? Now take a look at the back side. You see how wet that is? Now take a look at the underside. See how light color that is? Alright, now this is a rubber birch. What you're going to do, you're going to take these small little pieces off. Don't worry about those big pieces. Not yet anyway. These small little pieces are going to catch nice and easy. They're very packed full of resin and oils and all kinds of wonderful stuff for creating a nice warm cozy fire. So I'm going to collect some of this. I'm going to take y'all around the woods to see if I can find some more spots. And also, as you collect these kinds of tinders and stuff like that after a rainstorm, I want you to put it in your pocket. Well, why? Because that's going to help dry it out if it's got any moisture at all in it. See, that's going to burn very well. Alright, I'll see y'all in just a little bit. Random outdoor tip, y'all. Remember how I was talking about water in one of my past videos? How I talked about you can find water in bold leaves? Well, look at that. That ain't very much, but this is an example of what I'm talking about. I just thought I'd bring it up because it did just rain, and I could talk a little bit about water in this one. So I'm going to look for tinder, and I'm actually going to tell you a little bit about rain as a water collection source. Alright, typically rain is a very, very, very safe source. What would make it not very safe? Well, if the pollution in the air was bad enough, you could get something called acid rain, which could be kind of bad for you. So, when you're collecting rainwater, it's not exactly hard. All you need to do is to improvise a rain collection system, whether that be your tarp for your shelter, or something along those lines. You could take bamboo, split it into halves, take them that pithy stuff that's segmented it, carve that out, and make like shingles, and have that running into a gutter, and that gutter running into your water collection device. I mean, everything's really wet right now, and I'm seeing, bits of water and everything. You can check in hollows of trees for water. You can, anywhere where there's a depression, a hole, or anything like that water could collect, check in there. You never know if water could be in there or not. Although if it's a hole in the ground or a hole in a tree, unless you can see inside it, I don't recommend sticking your hand in there. You might draw back a nub. Maybe not literally a nub, but you could get bit by something. And getting bit by something isn't exactly very pleasant all the time. Yeah, so here's some big birch trees. This feels really dry too. Not as dry as it could be, but dry. Like I said before, take the fuzzy stuff, the soft stuff. Don't worry about that hard stuff. You can take that hard stuff as kindling. But this is for tinder. Take this stuff. And a little tip, watch out for poison ivy. If you're allergic to it, I wouldn't recommend getting it on your hands, because that's going to lead into a very unpleasant survival experience. Obviously, a lot of people know how to recognize poison ivy. One of the ways is the triplet leaves. Now, on the larger vines, or somewhat larger vines, they're going to look like that. The vines are going to be real fuzzy wuzzy looking. Now, I don't care whether you're allergic to it or not. That is not a good tinder source. Especially if you're in group survival, because that could lead to uncomfort of a whole bunch of people. Poison ivy vines are fuzzy. They're fuzzy. Alright. So a lot of what I'm seeing around here for dry tinder is on the underside of these dang river birches. I'd like to give y'all more of a variety of tinders here, but having trouble doing that. I mean, I am mostly in a forest of river birches, so it's kind of hard. But I'll see what I can do. I'll get back to y'all in just a little bit. Hey y'all. So this is a great find. Now, if you happen to be in an area of thick pines, or where there's a lot of pines, or even just a couple pine trees, take a look at the pine trees and look for resin. Okay, look for the resin coming out of the trees. Or, look at this great big knot right here. This is packed full of resin, this big knot right here. Take your knife or whatever and chop a few chunks out of that and add that to your fire collection, because that is going to burn very quickly, very easily, very hot. It's actually not going to burn very quickly, it's going to burn for a long time. That resin is going to act like a candle. I love resin wood. Now, if you look inside this piece I've already taken out, see how dark it is right there? Alright, that's how you know it's just packed full of freaking resin. Alright, so I'm going to chop a few pieces out of that, and I will see y'all in just a little bit. Okay, y'all. So, one thing you're going to want to do before you try and light a fire in these wet conditions is create a small platform for your fire. Because the moisture in the ground will suck the heat right out the fire. And you don't want that. That's not good for it. You just want to create a small platform just to keep it off the wet ground. And you can do this in snow too. Matter of fact, it's a really good idea to do this when it's snowing. And, you know, just take some different straight sticks and stuff like that and create your platform. Once you got your platform set up, you're going to want to take your tinder, set it up right there. And I've had this in my pocket, so it's dang sure had time to do some drying. Alright, then you want to look for that, whatever other kinds of tinder you've gathered. Like for me, I gathered some fat wood or resin wood. And that's actually quite water resistant. Alright. So, for me, I keep a ferro rod on me. I also keep one in my pack. I like to do this first, just to streak it up. That's what I was after right there. Take that piece of fat wood, look how quick that just caught on fire. And you can do that. That fat wood's really good. Really good for it. Alright. That first perk was a lot wetter than I thought it was. But that's the reality of survival. You don't always get things on the first shot. You don't always get things on the first spark. Whatever. So, now I'm going to talk about some handmade tinders. Now, this is a really easy one, really cheap. Just take petroleum jelly and you knead it into a cotton ball. You just take a small little piece off. You don't need much. Fluff it up. And this normally takes only a spark to go. Now, I I'm gonna do this with a lighter, just to demonstrate. Look how quick that went. Look how long that fat wood's burning. And then there's something else you can make called charcoal. I'll show you what that is in a little bit. Or how to make that in another video, rather, is what I meant to say. Try and get my hands on these. Alright, all it is cloth, straight cotton, by the way. That really helps. That was burned without oxygen. Now, with this stuff, you treat it just like the coal from your bow drill or whatever, and just hit it once with a spark or get a spark on it, and here, look at that. That's just a few of the kinds of tinders there are that you can use, that you can make. And I really like charcoal. And once you get that stuff going, it'll burn for a while before it, finally smolders out. So fire in wet conditions is never easy. Never. Typically, ideally, you just want to spend a few hours at least looking for stuff to get your fire going when it's been raining good. But a quick tip would be to, when you're out hiking around and it's getting ready to rain or it just started raining, quickly grab a whole bunch of dry, tinderous type stuff. Because that's really going to help you out if you decide or you need to make a fire later on. That's really going to help you. Look at that fat wood. I just love that stuff. I highly recommend that you go home, when you get off of this video, you take a look at, how to identify fat wood, how to look for it, where to look for it. Because it's amazing. It's amazing stuff. And you can also take the resin coming from the trees and push it into other kinds of wood, and it'll do the same thing. It won't burn quite as long, but it will burn. But with that, I could have lit up, some kindling I could have got. Now in the next video, I'll cover kindling and fuel. I'll cover kindling better, and I'll talk about fuel. So, hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you tomorrow.